Hello, my name is Sarah Vermillion, and today I'm going to be discussing the issue of child hunger in America. Many people are not aware of how big of an issue this is in our country today, and just how many Americans struggle with food inequality. According to this graph from No Kid Hungry, which is a national nonprofit organization working to end child hunger, 1 in 6 American children struggle with hunger. Think about this for a second. 1 in 6. That's 17% of children across America who don't have enough food. I went to an elementary school with 600 students, so if those statistics applied to my school, 100 of the students would be struggling with hunger. Although this is not the case. I did not go to school with children who had these types of issues. The biggest problem we had in elementary school was when they got rid of the chocolate milk in the lunch lines. Thankfully, programs do exist to help these children in need. Especially today, this issue is becoming worse and worse as time goes on and will continue to erupt. One major factor that has caused poverty to skyrocket is the Great Recession. The Great Recession occurred between December of 2007 and June of 2009. During the Great Recession, there was a sharp decline in economic activity. One major factor that led to this was the U.S. housing market losing about $8 trillion. During the Great Recession, the unemployment rate hit 25%. That's 1 in 4 Americans that lost their jobs. This caused the poverty rate to rise, and therefore, so did the food inequality rates in America. This has caused the level of Americans who don't have enough food to reach an all-time high. African Americans have it much harder than white Americans, since our country was built off of racial inequalities that still prevail and affect the lives of African Americans. Because African Americans were not given the same opportunities white Americans were in our past, white Americans are at an advantage. This makes it so much harder for African Americans to get an equal education or jobs, and causes them to work twice as hard to try and get out of this cycle of unequal opportunities. Looking at the chart, African American children are twice as likely to go hungry compared to white American children. This is because of the inequalities that exist against African Americans. If they can't get the job they want or the education they need, how are they supposed to provide for their family? If a child grows up in a poor family, how are they supposed to get the financial support they need to go off to college and change their future? They're not. Unfortunately, there is a pattern when it comes to poverty, and it is very hard to break without some help. So you will see the same results with the future generations. Single parents are also at a huge disadvantage since they only have one salary to support their children, especially women. Women's salaries are still not equal to what a man makes. A recent study showed from the Pew Research Center that women make about 83% what a man would make. Clearly, this puts them at a disadvantage and gives them unequal opportunities to succeed. If they have the same education and the same job, why wouldn't they have the same salary? Because adults are struggling to find work, they are forced to feed their children the only food they can afford, which is usually cheap fast food. This is a problem for children because eating fast food all the time clearly isn't healthy. Children who don't receive the nutrients they need while growing up are likely to become malnourished and are much more likely to be hospitalized. They also face higher risks of developing anemia or asthma and are much more likely to have health problems later in life, such as stunted growth, problems in school, and problems with social interactions. This is really problematic because if their parents can't afford to buy their children food, how are they expected to pay for medications or hospital bills? In all, homeless people are the #1 victims of food inequality in America. This is because they are the poorest people in America. Many people think of adults when they think about homeless people, but the truth is, every year, about 2 million children will face a period of homelessness, according to the Covenant House organization. These children are often victims of disturbing circumstances. The stories behind their homelessness often involves physical or sexual abuse. In fact, the Covenant House organization shared that about 50% of the teens they help reported that the main reason they left their home was the abuse they received from a family member. They also shared that about 40% of homeless people in the United States are under the age of 18. Because homeless people usually don't receive a full education, they are likely to not have much knowledge on the importance of nutrition. Many also struggle with mental illness, which hinders their ability to take care of themselves properly. People have given homeless people a negative stereotype, but the truth is, not all homeless people are bad or addicted to drugs like we might perceive. There are not all crooks or dangerous people. In fact, many of the homeless people in America are veterans. A lot of them just had hard lives they needed to escape, like the children that were taken in by the Covenant House organization. Many also struggled to make it in our economy without an advanced education. Today, it is so hard to get a high-paying job without a college education. But for some people, college isn't an option due to finances. Some people are hardworking, but just get dealt a bad hand of cards in life. We shouldn't be so quick to judge homeless people because we have no way of knowing their true story, unless you're bold enough to go ask. Throughout my life, I have always helped homeless people whenever I saw an opportunity. I learned this from my dad. He has always bought homeless people meals when he sees them. He also used to give this old lady who was homeless a ride to the metro whenever he saw her on the side of the road near my house. He does stuff like this all the time. He is a very generous, hard-working man who really appreciates all that life has given him. He's always been a great example for me, and he gave me the courage to not be afraid to help people in need. Whenever I have gotten a homeless person food, they have always been so grateful, and they were cheerful that I was not afraid to talk to them. There are people just like us, but I face struggles I can't even imagine. I have also done volunteer work through my church, organizing and collecting food and clothes donations. All the schools I went to also had canned food drives that I always participated in. I spent my community service hours in high school helping at Rising Hope. I donated food, clothes, and lots of stuffed animals. I got to see some of the kids take my old toys, and it was so rewarding seeing how much joy it brought them to just get a toy. I have also done other community service trips like the Jeremiah Project through my church. I worked on extremely poor people's homes, making repairs for free, such as silver ceiling roofs, skirting trailers, painting, building wheelchair ramps, and even a deck. I really enjoyed helping these people. They don't have a lot of money to pay for these services, so my church gets volunteers to help them. This gives them the support they need and allows them to save their money for food and other necessities. Every individual makes a difference. I definitely learned this at camp. We got so much progress done, and we were just middle school kids with no experience. We really can change the problems in our country, but in order to make a long-lasting, impacting difference on the food inequalities in America, we need to make it a national goal. The food inequality in America has reached alarming rates. The children currently struggling with hunger are the future of the United States, and it is our job to create a better world for our children's future. The cycle of poverty isn't going anywhere until we decide to do something about it. A child who is born into poverty is more than likely to remain in poverty throughout their adult life. In order to help these children, we need to help their parents have the money and education they need to provide for their children. One simple way to help the lower-class Americans would be to raise the minimum wage. Many of these people work multiple jobs, receiving minimum wage, and still don't make enough to support a family. The average minimum wage right now in the United States is $7.25 per hour. This is less than I made in middle school babysitting. Come on, America. Another action we need to take is increasing funding for emergency food and stronger food stamp programs. The Emergency Food Assistance Program is a program in the United States that helps provide low-income Americans with emergency food. This program provides them with food they would not be able to get on their own, and basically saves them from starvation. It also helps them get a more nutritious diet and at no cost. This program really helps people get back on their feet. I would love to see it grow and help even more Americans. Food stamps are also a great aid to low-income Americans because they can be used to purchase things like bread, cereal, fruit, vegetables, poultry, meat, fish, and dairy. This will really help Americans keep a healthy, balanced diet, and will ensure that children get the proper nutrition they need. Programs like these are what I'd love to see more of. It is important for us to put ourselves in these people's shoes and not just ignore other people's issues because they don't apply to ourselves. We have a moral obligation to take care of each other. Americans are supposed to be united and strong. Many school meal programs already exist across America, providing children with free or reduced lunches, and at some schools they even give them a bag of food for the weekend. This is because the schools know some of their students don't have the food they need at home, so they provide them with enough to get through the weekend somewhat comfortably. Free or reduced lunches help aid low-income families that are not able to afford paying for their children's lunch. The NSLP is a federally assisted organization that provides healthy, low-cost, or even free lunches at private and public schools. Programs like these are a great way to make sure children don't go hungry when they are not in school. Some kids only get one real meal a day, which is their school lunch. This is why some schools send their low-income students home with food for the weekend. I want to be an elementary school teacher when I am older, and I will definitely advocate for these programs. I really care about children, and I don't think it is fair for a child to starve because their family doesn't make enough money. When I was a senior in high school, I did an internship in a first grade class. Sometimes one of the students wouldn't have a snack during snack time, so the teacher, Ms. Chachan, always kept some emergency snacks in her classroom. I will definitely do this when I'm a teacher so that none of my students feel hungry or excluded. Food drives are another great way to collect and donate food towards organizations that will pass the food on to hungry Americans. Programs like these were in my elementary school, and when I am a teacher, I will make sure they are still ongoing. The Feeding America organization organizes all sorts of food drives you could be a part of. They let you know what types of items they accept and what they really need. They also accept donations, and $1 is the equivalent of 10 meals. They work directly with the feeding network that produce meals below retail costs, so they are able to get so much more bang for your buck. I highly suggest looking into the Feeding America organization if you'd like to donate or learn more about child hunger in America. What time is it? Other great organizations are teaming up to fight against child hunger. For example, Noodles & Company is teamed up with No Kid Hungry in order to help end child hunger. In 2016, they raised more than $500,000 for No Kid Hungry, which provided about 5 million meals for children. Dave Bowengasson is the chief executive officer at Noodles & Company, and he says that with 1 in 6 kids struggling with hunger in our country today, there's no better time than now to empower our people, our guests, and our communities to come together and positively impact the lives of those kids who need it most. I really like the message he gives and the fact that Noodles & Company. Another business that has taken similar measures is Williams-Sonoma. They've teamed up with No Kid Hungry as well and are donating 30% of their proceeds they make from their annual spatula collection. Their goal is to raise $2 million more for No Kid Hungry, which would add up to 20 million meals. It is great to see organizations like these doing their part to end child hunger. You can find the Williams-Sonoma spatulas on Facebook if you search Williams-Sonoma No Kid Hungry, and it will take you to the following pages. And for Noodles & Company, if you go on Facebook and search Noodles & Company No Kid Hungry, you can watch the videos about joining in on their goal to end child hunger. You can also find No Kid Hungry on Twitter at No Kid Hungry and find more companies that are working with them to help end child hunger. It is so important for us Americans to look out for one another when there is a problem within our society. I urge you to take whatever measures you are comfortable with, whether it is donating your time, money, food, or even getting involved in the political aspects of child hunger in America. One way or another, get involved. We need to end the cycle of poverty, and as I said before, it needs to be a national goal for us to really make an impact.